Alioth, the trans-temporal behemoth, made its first appearance in the Loki TV show, and then found some screen time in Deadpool and Wolverine, which, in my opinion, felt like someone reminded Marvel how to make movies again. What do you think about it? So yeah, in this video, we will explore whatever there is to explore about Alioth's form, structure, eating habits, anatomy, you name it. I will try to keep the video as spoiler-free as possible, but there might be a few minor ones, so yeah, let's not waste any more time in the intro and begin. If you have liked it so far, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Those two small clicks from you will help us marvelously to keep on creating these videos. Now, let's continue. Origin and creation. According to the comics, Alioth was the first being ever who managed to free itself from the constraints set by time, but nothing more is really mentioned about his origin or creation. Now, the Disney Plus show Loki comes to the rescue. So, according to the show, Alioth came into being because the several variants of Victor Timely created rifts in space and time during their multiversal war. What was it, you ask? Well, Victor Timely, one of whose variants was Kang the Conqueror, happened to meet with his other variants. These people would share information and knowledge, but eventually, Kang the Conqueror decided that he wanted to conquer all the realities. This is when the Timely variant, known as He Who Remains, found Alioth and used it to defeat all other variants, including Kang. Anyway, I believe that Alioth is basically the product of time, space, and matter. You know, like time is actually a constituent of what makes him. Is the MCU version Alioth's original form? Well, I don't think so. I mean, in Loki, the show, and Deadpool and Wolverine, the movie, Alioth appears as an ever-shifting purple cloud that moves like a tempest. However, that doesn't seem like its original form to me. I think there may be some degree of changes in its behavior, if not the look, cause you see, He Who Remains clearly notes that he experimented on the creature once he found it. In fact, when He Who Remains describes the story of the multiversal war, we see him bringing out Alioth using a leash or a harness. How could a beast so powerful and vile get tamed to serve as a warhound? So yeah, the experiments conducted by He Who Remains did a number on the trans-temporal behemoth. Maybe the once mindless creature developed some kind of a bond with HWR, albeit a transactional bond. So that's how He Who Remains mastered Alioth's powers and won the multiversal war. What does it look like? Alioth looks like a living storm that is constantly in motion and will consume anything it can find, be it living or not living. While it consumes living things in entirety, it leaves everything else bare. While it has no structure as such, it does have a face with two large glowing eyes. You could say that it looks kinda like a kiwi, the bird, without its beak and legs. Can you travel through Alioth? Well, yes and no. I mean, if you are someone not equipped with a lot of powers and ways to beat Alioth, you cannot travel through it because it would consume you. That's why a classic Loki, Kid Loki, Boastful Loki, and Alligator Loki knew that they had to avoid it. In Deadpool and Wolverine, Cassandra Nova and her crew were fully aware that they had to stay away from Alioth. In fact, it seems like Cassandra Nova was trying to feed Deadpool and Wolverine to Alioth as some sort of a sacrifice, to ensure that it did not attack her crew. Do you think this was the understanding that He Who Remains also had with Alioth? Kinda like seeking his help in exchange for being fed, because, well, it was only after the war that He Who Remains created the Time Variance Authority and started sending the variants to get pruned in the void, where Alioth would eat them. Anyway, I am totally digressing. So, yeah, you cannot simply move through Alioth, even if you are someone as powerful as Cassandra Nova. However, in Loki, Sylvie, the Loki variant, managed to enchant the creature. Once enchanted, Alioth dispersed to create a path for Loki and Sylvie to pass through. Can its hunger be satiated? Well, I think Alioth's hunger is way more pronounced than the hunger of old politicians for power. I'm not sure if it keeps growing in size upon consuming stuff, because that would mean that if Alioth ever got out of the void and into the real world, it would become enormous, and may even consume the universe until nothing else was left in it. Or, let's drop the whole getting out of the void thing. Even if it remains in the void for too long, it would keep consuming things that are sent to prune, and would ultimately ultimately become as vast as the void itself. That would not fulfill any purpose now, would it? Anyway, Alioth always goes for the bigger meal. In the show, when it was hunting Loki and Sylvie, classic Loki created an illusion of Asgard, and it immediately went for this fake Asgard because it was the bigger meal, thereby ignoring Loki and Sylvie. Now, this is one way to dodge Alioth because its food habits make it a tad bit predictable. What kind of attacks work well against Alioth? Well, the first and foremost thing about Alioth that you need to understand is that you cannot hurt it via conventional forms of attacks. For instance, the USS Eldritch tried attacking it with all of its might, but nothing affected the Time Monster. If the Void was a shark tank, Alioth was the shark, the biggest predator there is. So, you can't really laser it or land punches on its ugly, scary face. However, you can control it through various means, which is what Sylvie and Loki did. Which is what He Who Remains did as well. In fact, Cassandra Nova was also making deals with Alioth for her safety and the safety of her crew. So basically, you can totally play mind games with Alioth. Role and purpose. Alioth is basically the guardian of the void, appointed by He Who Remains. Apart from this, Alioth also serves as a protector of He Who Remains at the Citadel at the end of time. You see, He Who Remains is a very powerful entity, but he was ultimately slain when Alioth failed to do its only job. You could say that Alioth was basically serving as a guard dog to He Who Remains, and got tricked by two puny Asgardians. How is Alioth different in the MCU from its comic version? In the MCU's Loki series and the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, Alioth is portrayed slightly differently compared to its comic book counterpart. This version resides in the void at the end of time, consuming temporal energy, which explains its attraction to living beings rather than inanimate objects. Alioth acts more like a mindless beast, a stark contrast to the potentially vast intelligence it possesses in the comics. Essentially, it serves as a guard dog, blocking the path to the real forces behind the Timekeepers. The way Loki and Sylvie come to understand Alioth's name and nature is intriguing. It's likely they were not the first to attempt to enchant the creature. Previous efforts by another Loki variant probably unearthed some level of self-awareness in Alioth, though not enough to gain control. However, it was the combined efforts of Loki and Sylvie that successfully subdued Alioth, highlighting the power of teamwork.
I harnessed the beast's power and began experimenting on it.
What's Alioth's deal with Kang the Conqueror? In the MCU, Alioth has been transformed from a major multiversal power to more of a temporal watchdog. Originally in the comics, Alioth was a formidable adversary to Kang the Conqueror, and even managed to consume part of Kang City, Chronopolis, before challenging the Council of Kangs. This confrontation threatened to disrupt time travel and potentially unravel the multiverse itself. However, Kang managed to counter Alioth's threat by sacrificing his variant to rejuvenate Tempest, his guardian, which basically ensured that the stage was set for a rematch. Considering Alioth's deep connections with Kang in the comics, it's intriguing to think he might be also behind the Time Variant's authority in the Loki series. If Alioth were ever to break free from the void and enter the timeline, it could potentially evolve into the catastrophic threat depicted in the comic series. To sum up, I would say that Alioth is one of the scariest beasts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Although it's pretty low on intelligence, it makes up for it through its ferocity, powers, and the sheer hunger to destroy and annihilate. Cause, you know, Alioth is pretty much the embodiment of rage and fury. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone!